Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session, a chop session, a non-podcast of Product Mode. Today, we want to talk about something really important and near and dear to our hearts, which is how does talent fare on the other side of the AI paradigm shift? We talk about this a lot. We've written a letter to CEOs. We've talked about how product managers can survive. But let me just lay out what we're thinking. So we are seeing a huge crunch in the creative core that builds software and builds technology, whether it's hardware or not. And in the last year, we've seen a lot of attrition with product managers because people are uncertain about the future and product managers are hired to tell the future. The future was easy in the SaaS world. With people not knowing what it is, product managers are taking a hit. And people don't feel like, especially lower level product managers, have any particular crystal ball on what's going to happen. Everyone knows they need to be retrained. Two, we're seeing multiple skills. People are using agents to learn product and develop, and product people are using, agents to figure out how to code. So we're seeing skill shifts. And so we're seeing a collapsing of the traditional hierarchy of product design development that's happening. So what does this all mean? Which brings us to the concept of the hyper creator, which we believe is the future of shipyard teams that build creative software to win the future. So we're going to talk about that today. So I'm going to first flip it to Ezinne or Ted to expand on this stuff, like what they're worried about, what they see coming around the corner.
I would say that I'm not worried necessarily. I actually think this is really interesting. And I think that the signals from LinkedIn, like they created this full stack builder program, right?
Mm,
And that's a real signal that basically has moved away from an associate product manager and replaced it with this associate builder program. So that is a signal. I have my
mm,
concerns, and those concerns really are around this idea of building, right? And it really seems to shift the idea that product is really around the building. And I want for us that have been doing this, building is in fact pretty easy to do. It's the right product for the right price, right? And getting it to the right and solving a solution, solving a problem that actually is easy and compelling enough to adopt. That is the nuance. So when you call it a builder, right, a full stack builder, I think we need that. We should all be working towards that, and that's the big idea of a hyper creator. But making sure that we don't overcorrect into the building aspect versus the judgment aspect, right, of it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I think that's right. I think just to take a half step back about hyper creators, right? And I think hyper creator is going to exist in all cases, right? But specifically narrowing this down to building products and being part of development efforts, right? The hyper creators in this space, in all spaces, are essentially going to be conductors of AIs, right? They're going to be the literally shaping together the individual outputs of multiple AI agents in order to accomplish various goals. And in this case, it's shipping product, right? And I think as an you're on the money that when you have that, right, when you're the conductor of like an orchestra, right, it's not because the people in the orchestra don't know how to play the music and they don't know how to play their pieces. They absolutely do. It's how do you get them to perform at the next level by performing at like in terms of orchestra, performing at like a sublime level, right? And that becomes the hard part, right? Not everyone is capable of leading a world-class orchestra. I don't think everyone is going to be capable of leading a team of incredibly capable agents, right? And so now the question is, how do people get there into this hyper creator work from today, right? What do you do today that's going to help you get down that path, prepare for that path so that you can be that hyper
Wait,
creator?
so you don't think that hyper creators will be commodity in 10 years? So my question to you is, yes, if you use that metaphor, being a conductor is really hard. And not everyone in the orchestra can be a conductor. But I think that for labor not to be completely attrited, we have to have a path for anyone in the orchestra to become a conductor. And then we hire 100 million more conductors than there are even PMs today. Like that's how this thing works for actual people in a capitalist world. If we don't think that that's going to happen, then that's a rough world, right? So will the tools get so easy that becoming a conductor is, here, take this piece of software and then you can become a conductor? Like what's the thought on that?
I think it will be, right? I think you're seeing that now, right? Look at Claude Code, look at anti-gravity, look at how these things work, and or look at Lovable for that matter, right? I mean, I think you are going to see the case where more people have the chance to be a conductor. Now, what you're talking about is interesting. I don't think I think the jury's clearly out about what happens, but we've talked about other revolutions in the past, right? Other technological revolutions in the past, and that how they've created new jobs, right? Not in necessarily the ways that you've ever thought of, but over time, they've created more jobs, right? And now, is that going to happen now or not? I think that if it's easier, it's kind of what you meant by commodity, right? If it's easier for people to try your hand at conducting, to try your hand at conducting a group of AI agents to ship product, does that mean we're going to have more of those people or fewer of those people? Right? I think your gut is right. I think just like today, look at how many people are influencers. Okay, because all it takes is one of these, and you point it at yourself, right? I know.
Yeah, TikTok
I know it's a
churned.
lot harder than that.
No, TikTok churned sophisticated because of phone processors. They turned sophisticated creator stuff, made it super simple for anyone to do it and go viral. So I think that that's what's going to happen. The hyper creator, first of all, I think definitionally is someone who combines the roles that used to be distinct, right? Someone has to think about, why should we even build this product? Typically, product managers. What is it? Form and function, shared by product managers and designers. How do we do it? How long is it going to take? Developers, architecture, code. Hyper creators are people who can do all of these things at once, so that you don't need a team of 7, you need a team of 2, or you need a team of 1. And they can orchestrate agents to do all those things, design, code. And the judgment, which to Ezinne's point, they also have to have the judgment that says, we shouldn't do this. There's an opportunity cost. We should do this because this is a sharp problem to solve, whether it's company-wide or feature level. But maybe optimistically or kindly or whatever you want to call it, I think that there will be more hyper creators in the world in a few years than there is the sum of developers, designers, and product managers today.
I don't agree. I don't
Okay,
agree.
tell us.
I don't
Tell
think
us why.
I don't think that there will be more hyper creators than the sum. Think about that. That is saying that we need more, right? So you're saying add the 3, right? And that volume, I don't think there will be. However, I do think that there will be way more than we give space for. And why I say this is this: there'll be more than there are PMs. There'll be more than
Hmm.
there are designers. I don't know if it'll be more than they are developers, and developers obviously defined loosely here. So people will be out of work. Let's be really frank. Let me tell you what I think why I'm saying this. I think that we need to look at core trends. If you're talking about profitable companies, enterprise companies, companies that are building B2B, et cetera, there's still going to be a lot of risk, caution, judgment, all the things that are required. So no matter what, they will try and keep ownership of the different domains really clear, obviously looking for AI assisted. However, for the explosion part, I think you're onto something. There is what we call the nichifying, or the new, very bespoke products that are being made. And more of those, I think, will continue to be made. There will be more solopreneurs who are working with just 50,000 people who love their very specific product. There'll be people who build agents specifically for 20, 30,000 people, and they will make money from that. Claire Vaux is an amazing example. She has her regular job at Launch Darkly, but she's also built this side hustle that's become a thing. Does she want it to become an enterprise product? Obviously, over time, and there'll be more people like her who will not expand to pure enterprise product, but they'll be very profitable businesses. So those will exist, and for those, I see them leaning more into exactly what you're saying. Hyper creators will make more of those
Mm,
things. Startups will rely more on those hyper creators, but the Googles, Facebooks, Metas, etc., will be looking for people who have responsibility and accountability to what PMs have historically had accountability towards, which is the why, the customer context, the marrying of the work to the business. Designers will also be responsible for the experience, maybe, and developers or architects or whatever, or builders, whatever you want to call them, will be responsible for the systems thinking and the technical architecture, because you just need an owner, right? When
Hmm.
you're working on enterprise level things.
Hmm.
Because again, provenance matters. When you're writing $1 million checks, you need to know how we came to this reality. And it's just the risk aversion that these organizations have. Will we have it to the same numbers? Will there be as many people? No, I do not believe that there will be. So I don't know. Those are the two things I'm looking at. The fact that enterprise is risk averse. When people buy software, they want to understand how it was built. They want to understand a couple of other things. I think that there will be pseudo collapse of some of those roles, but not the
Hmm.
entire collapse within enterprise organizations. But
Hmm.
hyper creators will exist. They will be applauded, celebrated. Um, it's the right thing to do. Like as a PM, you really need to be a little more robust, because you can then serve in the startup world, and you're also pretty valuable in bigger enterprises, because they need to know that you can draw from that hyper creativity.
Hmm. So
That's my thought. It may be controversial, or you guys may not agree.
so your controversial thought is giving me another controversial thought, which is this. Okay, I think we're going to see massive evolution in enterprise software as a business, period. Right? Because I think with hyper creators, okay, if I'm a corporate and I'm not a tech corporate, right? But right now, of course, I make some of my own
your
software.
caterpillar or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but the point is, yes, Caterpillar. Well, it doesn't matter. Like it could be a tech-enabled business. It doesn't matter. But I buy a lot of enterprise software. That's right. But I have my own people too, right? And right now, the balance for most non-tech organizations is they buy, right? Because they're like, look, I obviously I need IT people. I need people to customize some of this. I need data scientists. I need fine specialists, right? But by and large, I'm not going to build my own ERP. That's out of control. So I'm just going to go buy one, right? I'm not going to go build my own whatever, right? Guess what? In the world full of hyper creators, okay, am I going to do that? Am I going to go buy, PeopleSoft? Am I going to go buy, whatever product, right? Because guess what? That product, first of all, is expensive as crap right now. And you know it. Like for many large enterprises, I mean, you're talking tens of millions of dollars, right, or more, right? Especially if you put all the people costs around that, right? And guess what? It's not yours, right? You spend so much time, energy, and money customizing that to make it your own. So now with hyper creators on your own team, are you more apt or less apt to buy gigantic enterprise software?
I love this, because I'm like, no, no, I will buy, right?
We're coming to some.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. So talk to me. Why? Why would I
Well,
buy?
Just
so
like Apple. Go ahead. Anyway, Audrey, go for it.
no. Hopefully, I'll be slim. You're hitting on something we talked about before we pre-gamed this, which is we're paradoxically going to an era where we will not buy software, right? If you need something, software or technology automation, you can roll your own, right? Now, I think the issue is what are the rails that people have to ride on? So there has to be system of record for HR anyway. Like you can't just roll your own HR or whatever. There has to be a system of
That's
record.
not my phone. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's different. Look, the point is, okay, let's slim it down because enterprise is tricky. You won't buy apps the way you used to buy apps 10 years ago, right? For the simplest things, you're just going to make it. And you'll be able to, and you'll just be able to use it. And it'll work exactly how you imagine that it'll work. And in fact, the only reason to get something else is that your brain isn't very creative and you see someone a person's own and you're like, can I have yours? Right? And
Right.
then he gives it to
I
you,
want to figure it out. It's yours.
or you replicate it, right? So it's sharing economy versus a buying economy for software. right? So this is, if the AI revolution reduces the demand for store-bought technology, how does the world change?
So I do not agree.
I
Completely do not. And
Mm.
I say this because, so I think the idea you bring on is one of configurability, customization, the core of what HR is. Imagine, like Apple even did this. Like they are not going to be great at LLM, so they partner. Companies that understand expertise matters will not go build their own ERP and their own account. Like, no, like, what is your focus? Pick something, do it. What I think you will see is that the seed of the product, the B2B software that we've seen, where, as you know, productization is about building high level, same copy of product and making it configurable, right? That's the big thing you're trying to do, right? So that as everybody needs it differently on their workflow, they can configure it to meet their needs. That layer of configurability, I think, will be exposed in such a way that all the things you're saying will matter. The people that are hyper creators can come and put their special juice or whatever, but the core GRC, the compliance, the security, all the things that are really important to how ERP is built, how recruiting tools are built. All those things I think will still remain. I think they just will be stripped down to the heart of what needs to be done, and the architecture changes. That's
So,
how I think about it.
okay, I agree with that. So I think that, let's take ERP. So first of all, we want to be clear that we're talking about enterprise,
We're just making
and
stuff.
the
Yeah.
software market is
Always.
not all enterprise, right? Like,
exactly.
I remember
Absolutely.
looking at this, and I saw that 95% of all business is non-enterprise,
Hmm.
right?
Definitely.
In fact, it's worse than that. That 5% has a huge gradation, the one at the top.
Right.
Hmm.
Now, it is responsible for a lot of procurement, but the rest of the economy is everything else.
Mm,
Everything else.
mm,
So let's just be clear, we're talking about the top probably 2 to 3% when we
Hmm.
talk about enterprise software. And I think Ezinne is right. That will become a little unrecognizable because the app layer of it will become not as necessary. The platform components will be stripped down so that
mm.
people can do their own personal software on top of it.
Yeah.
And then all the governance will be there, all the compliance will be there, blah, blah, blah. But should I use your terrible Salesforce UI when I have a really custom thing I want to do in
Or why
beverages or
hate it?
construction? Why would I do that?
You
Yeah,
wouldn't.
I can
I
build
think
my
that's
own
100%
pane
right
of
for UI.
glass, right? I can build
Yeah.
my own. So it challenges the system integrator market, et cetera, or maybe it actually helps them more because I
Well,
can now build my own pane of glass experience for all these tools. I can actually make them talk to each other if I want to, if we get there. That said, though, if you even begin to go to number one, not only are we just talking about enterprise, we're also talking about B2B. I'm sure if we decide to go B2B enterprise versus B2B mid tier, then B2B small business, right? There's a whole experience. But I
There's
still
something I heard
think
called a very small business, VSB, like
VSB,
less than
okay,
5. So they're
okay,
even
uh,
that,
more
that low.
smaller. But then I think if you then take what we're saying and think about B2C, right? I think it does change. But the thing that is true is risk. And I always go back to core principles. Companies have a fiduciary duty to make money for their shareholders. They want to solve a problem, and the bigger they are, oftentimes the more risk averse they are, or they figure out how to manage risk. And if we go back to the core topic, however they can employ, number one, hyper creators, I think, are here to stay. But for all the classifications of the organizations we're talking about, B2B, B2C, enterprise, mid-tier, etc., it really comes down to the way in which they will employ a hyper creator and make them responsible for the core delivery of value is going to be based on the level of risk that
mm.
that company is willing to expose. That's the core of it.
Yeah,
The smaller a company is, the more risk tolerant they are, then they're okay to collapse fully, right? And not necessarily have a quote unquote throat to choke, right? Because it's just they can handle it. But
I,
as so that they
Yeah.
can deconstruct and find where the issue happened. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're going over. I want to let you guys speak.
No, no, honestly, I think what you're saying, and I think this is right, is not just people are risk averse, but like some of those changes, all they do is introduce risk, right? Hyper customizing your, HR system, all it's going to do is cause problems, right? Like what you actually want is stable, boring, accepted workflow and not trying to find like the advantage to it. Certainly if you're really large. Now, if you're small, it may be very different, right? Because you might say, hey, you know what, this other company has 20 people. I want to try to do it with 3. Okay, I'm going to need a very different tool than the tool that they used for their managing their HR people or whatever, right? So there's I think that the size matters in an argument there. But going back to the hyper creator and customization, right? Like obviously I was being a little glib about like we're not going to buy any enterprise software. I think that's obviously not true. But I think that what you're seeing already, right? Even before you had this AI UI explosion, right? Like AI is eating UI. We've talked about this before, right? Agents are going to take the place, right? Of course. Now, we're already seeing that so many companies that made a lot of profit, not just revenue, profit off of configuring and tweaking their own software, right? That stuff is gone. Not gone, but it's vastly reduced because people won't buy that crap anymore, right? Enterprises are smarter to that model than they used to be, where it's like, oh, not only am I paying you a license, I'm going to pay you $5 million to customize this, and then I'm going to pay you money to maintain those customizations. And then I'm going to pay you when I want to change it. And they're like, wait a minute. I'm writing these ridiculously gigantic checks out the door for something that doesn't give me any money.
It's been on a long-term decline, even before AI, just to be clear. Like
Exactly.
that's what B2B SaaS help do is simplified user interfaces. So the SAPs of this world could command less and less for that stuff.
Exactly.
And I agree that agents and AI will reduce it because the chat interface and dynamic UI are essentially like they you just don't need static, confusing, complicated user experiences
Right.
in the long run.
Right.
So I think we wanted to keep this one short. I don't know that we came to what is our conclusion. I think that there'll be a collapse of in the building rocket ships. We talked about how to organize teams. We call it the shipyard. And we talked about ratios, and we talked about the different roles and what they're supposed to do within a creative team in technology. I think we're saying that the roles are going to start to be combined. They don't go away. Product manager doesn't go away. Development doesn't go away, and building and design doesn't go away. Usability doesn't go away, and product marketing doesn't go away. But 1 or 2 people can do all these things if they're AI assisted, and that the future of work is headed in that direction. The
Mhm.
only question we have, and we haven't resolved, and we all have different thoughts on, is will that cause a shrinking of the workforce? Or is this an opportunity for ambition for enterprises? Which is, if they hire the same number of these hyper creators as they did before, it will mean a force multiplier for their ambitions. They will be able to get more done for the same amount of time. And I think this is the only question and this is the societal question. Like,
Oh, it's definitely a
if
societal question.
if they don't do that, hire more, so there's fewer jobs. And essentially, economies start to contract and collapse because aggregate demand will go down because people won't have money. If they hire more, then there's growth. Homo sapiens and the capitalist experiment continues. If that makes sense. And I think, okay, so I'll say one more thing and I'll stop. The one advice is you've got to be a hyper creator. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait for society to answer that question and you be on the other side of answering that question. You have to, at least for yourself, you have to de-risk by being a hyper creator. You can't wait. So
Yeah.
there
And
you
so
have it.
at 10 seconds on that one, we saw some articles this week about people saying, hey, listen, I'm not sure I'm ready for the AI jobs of tomorrow, which were going to be orchestration, right? They're going to be conducting orchestra. It's going to be hyper creation. And you know what I'm saying, what you're saying, Aji, what Ezinne is saying, which is get used to it. Okay. I don't care where you are in your career. you're going to have like the hybrid team of humans and AI is happening, right? It's happening right now. So, and maybe it moves to all AI, maybe it's less, maybe it's mixed. I don't know. But if you're not comfortable, right, having AI part of the team, building that skill so that you can do a lot, what with one or two people, what used to be 20, guess what? You're going to get left behind, right? There's just that one is clear as day. So whether or not there's a lot more hyper creators or a lot fewer hyper creators, the people that are in all of those siloed specialized roles, that can't continue.
Yeah,
Is it?
I think that it is a dawn of the hyper creator. Anybody that's listening, you can't be an AI skeptic sitting on the sidelines. I think we've said that and said that well. When I think about humanity and all the technology that we've actually experienced, the jobs do come back in a different way. I think we find ways to be a little more ambitious. We find new frontiers to pursue. So I'm hopeful with that regard. It can be painful in the middle. And in order to prevent that pain from being your reality, do what we have asked or are suggesting that you do. But I think it's important to say this: we do need less to make more money these days, right? So if we leave the enterprise world and really think about the companies that are being built, they don't need as many people as they historically had. And that is just a fact. So, we should keep that in mind and figure out how many problems are really out there in this workflow, this world that we have built. But if we only think about it from the problems that have been solved, then it feels limiting that there are fewer things. But there are so many other problems that had yet to be solved. Even as an African, I always wondered why we were still ordering McDonald's on a screen, right? When there are bigger problems on the other side of the continent that needed to be addressed. So I'm hopeful that we'll begin to apply some of our knowledge and our skills towards really more challenging problems. And as a result, there'll be demand for other things, and our ambitions, to Aji's point, will increase, and opportunity will be created for more people. So that's my take.
Awesome.
There you have it, people. The wisdom of Ted, the wisdom of Ezinne, and
And
our
the wisdom of
ongoing
Aji.
struggle with our ongoing struggle with how AI and technology will shape society. Next week, there's all kinds of exciting news. Apple
Mhm.
and Google are in a tree kissing, KISSING, and there are lots of other things that are happening. And so we'll talk about those things next week. Join us and take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye, everybody.